Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the 10 No, sugar. Our standard. Dearie me. It's been a long week, it's been a long year. I'm really, really embarrassed that's live. So I can't just hit end stream and start again.
I don't think you've done it pre-recorded before.
Yeah, I know. Really bad. No, I will. I'll say that again. Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked, and I'm delighted to be joined by Craig Cairns once again on this occasion. How's it going, Craig?
Yeah, not too bad. All things considered, not too bad.
Yeah, I know. It's especially after it was a long day yesterday, and we're going to record a show today on with the transfer window opening tomorrow. Just kind of looking ahead to what we can expect, what's required, etc. Don't worry, it won't be as long as the podcast of the show we released last night, which was an hour and 20. Hopefully take an hour off that and get this wrapped up within 20 minutes and 30 minutes. Before we get into it, just a couple of housekeeping things to sort. Firstly, thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed. We've now reached, we've surpassed 2,000 subscribers. So a massive, huge and meaningful thank you to everyone who has subscribed and has supported and watches, listens, etc. It is really, it certainly means a lot to us. Secondly, I have not flashed up here. Where are we? Style? Nope. Media assets. Nope, not that one. Having a shocker this morning. I would just say a message from our sponsors. I am so prepared. And it's
Hugmanay. It's all right.
I know, but it's this is at least people watching us can just look at me frantically mucking around, whereas people listening on the podcast just like, just get on with it, man. You're a slaver. But anyway, Good Vibes Giveaways are proud to sponsor Hearts Standard and offer fantastic prizes to fans of the club. Prizes change weekly and include tech gadgets, days out, weekends away, tax-free cash, and even OASIS tickets. Get your tickets now at www.goodvibesgiveaways.com and enter for your chance to spread the good vibes. Now, Craig, the transfer window opens at midnight. Midnight tonight, and it runs until the 3rd of February at 11 p.m. So it's 34 days rather than just the 31 days. And I think it could be quite a busy one for Hearts. I think that's the expectation, not just players coming in.
Anyway.
Yeah, certainly to begin with, players coming in and also potentially players going out. And a big thing is the need to, or certainly the importance of getting business done early, because it's the situation that Hearts are in. They need players to come in, hit the ground running, or just get up to speed as quickly as possible. We asked Neil Critchley the weekend about it. Sunday about it. He said, when the window opens, as a coach, you want players in as quickly as possible. Not at the end of January, but ASAP, so they can have an immediate impact. So we'll see what happens in the next 48 hours. We're working extremely hard with the club to try and reinforce the squad in certain areas of the pitch, because I think that would be obvious that we're aiming to do. I think that would be obvious what we're aiming to do, and hopefully we can get some business done early. So I suppose
Can I just? I've put a comment up there just because you're talking about what Neil Critchley said at the weekend. Just before it disappears, because there's quite a lot of comments coming in. Is Neil Critchley's press conference today? Dave is asking. So over the festive period, because there's been so many matches, we've just been doing more post-match. Getting an extra player basically to kind of bridge the gap, rather than it's too quick a turnaround, especially at the time of year, to be having other press conferences. So it does change the dynamic a little bit, especially after something that happened at the weekend there. It's difficult to then go into details about players' contract situations, out of favour players, or like all in the transfer window. I mean, we did ask, but it's then difficult to kind of follow up. And they're waiting to get on the bus for a long journey back down the road and all that kind of stuff. So it does kind of change the dynamic a little bit. So we've not been able to kind of drill down in a bit more, but we're hopefully still not being able to ask Neil Critchley as many questions as we want, but we're hopefully still bring a fair bit of info for what's to be expected over the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's, I think, the next kind of
Sorry, I don't mean to say it's all going to be instant. Next few weeks, I meant to say. Sorry.
Yeah. The next pre-match press conference with Neil Critchley will be ahead of the Aberdeen game next week, because again it'll be because of the quick turnaround from the Motherwell game into the Dundee United game. It will just be a kind of post-match thing, and there's a lot of comments that we will get to and maybe will cover just by going by the topics we will talk about. So I suppose probably the best place to start is the ins and what Hearts need to do. So we may as well talk about Elton Kabangu first, because he is the one that's been most reported about, and he is believed to be on the cusp of signing and being the first player over the line for January. I've got a wee bit of info. Tom Irving has been writing something about him. He's been watching him this morning, so he sent me some info on him. But Craig, what's your initial feeling around the addition?
It's another one where just he looks to have some attributes where that Hearts need. It's in a position that Hearts need to strengthen. I know his recent appearance stats and things like that don't look good, but that just makes it an unknown for me. I know there'll be cynicism about it being from someone from Union Saint-Gilloise, but I think to kind of address that point, I don't think it means that everything is going to be done through an algorithm or something like that. And I know this is kind of dangerously close to what happens with multi-club models and things like that. But the desperate situation Hearts are in, it's going to make it more difficult to attract players to come for a relegation battle, especially if it's going to be a short-term thing. It's notoriously difficult to do permanent transfers in January, or more difficult to do permanent transfers in January. So sometimes there will be ones that are done out of convenience a bit more. I don't think it means the guy should be written off. Like I said, he's coming into an area where we need more. I mean, we need starters, never mind just like competition. We need starters in that area. He's left-footed. I was thinking about that today. I don't think we've got any left-footed attackers, do we? I think James Wilson's pretty handy with both feet from what I've seen, but I don't think we have any left-footed attackers. He seems quick, and okay, can't say I know much about the first division in the Netherlands, but he put numbers on the board there at least. So yeah, willing to give the guy a chance, because we're in that situation where we need somebody to come in. And I don't know, it'd be good to go back and have a look. It'd be so much work, but it'd be good to go back and have a look and see. And I don't just mean about Hearts, I just mean in general about where there's been fanfare about a sign-in and then they've come in and been dross, and where there's been a lot of cynicism or a lot of writing off and the guy is gone on to be a success. So yeah, I don't know.
It's funny. You
Juwon Oshiniwa or Ricardo Fuller. I don't know.
It's funny you say that, because I was speaking to someone earlier today about it. And I'm just like, and my mindset now is just, I am, when it comes to signings or Hearts in general, try and be as positive as possible. And maybe I'm too positive with some aspects. And these last 2 weeks, this season has grind some of the positivity out of me. I mean, I've not had the best of hairline of throughout my life, but I believe it's regressed even further because of this season, and it's just, yeah, my cynicism has gone up, where my positivity has come down. And probably the easiest way to go is just not build anyone up, and then just let them surprise you the good way. Because like I was pretty high on Jan Danda, and he's been a big disappointment this season so far. But I was high on Vargas coming into the season. He's been another disappointment this season. So yeah, it's one of those where wait and see. But speaking to, I've got one of my issues around it is something I'll come on to talk about with regards to what else the team needs. But yes, Hearts needed more bodies in attack, and having read a wee bit about Kabangu and spoken to Tom this morning, he very much sees him as, and I know this is how Hearts see him, as he's a striker. He can play wide as a forward, but he is very much viewed as a striker and will be played as a striker. Tom thinks there's a lot of attributes, and his attributes are he's very quick and he makes really good runs. He will get into goal scoring positions. He'll be he's not the type of striker who will just make one run and then that's him. If he makes one run and he doesn't get the ball, then he comes back looking for it and makes another run. I don't think he'll be involved much in the build-up play. Again, that's why he will be a striker who I'll play with someone else. Tom's reservation is around how he fits in with regard to, in comparison to Tagawa, where it was difficult for Tagawa because he didn't really get a run of games, but his strength was running in behind, and sometimes there's not that much space to run in behind, and especially if teams set up against us, unlike St Johnstone and Ross County, and they kind of nullify the space in behind. And then Tom's also reservation is that the players around him, only really Spittle is someone who looks to play through balls and running behind. Obviously, we've seen it with Liam Boyce at the weekend. That really worked well together, Boyce and Wilson, and I would like to see that again against Motherwell on Thursday. I think both performed well enough to keep their place, but that's what Kabangu is going to bring in. He's going to be similar to Wilson, and I suppose that does lessen a wee bit of the responsibility on a 17-year-old striker in a relegation battle. But I like the fact he's got pace and he is someone who'll get into goal scoring positions. That's a positive. My concern, and you might want to come in before going on to this next bit, is I would still think that Hearts could do with a striker who replaces or is an alternative to Shankland, and that might be Boyce, but kind of longer term.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but as I said, like January's probably not the time to be doing that, really, or it's more difficult to be doing that. But on Shankland, I mean, it's funny you said that because you said the only player, I know he's not flavour of the month at the moment, you said the only player that plays through balls is Spittle, but Shankland, I mean, we've spoken about this earlier in the season, there's been points where Shankland's needed help up there, where he's been doing so much and then he's not been getting stuff in return, or people aren't finishing off the chances that he's creating and things like that. So hopefully it's a signing that starts to get more out of Shankland as well, because he's got a bit of coming back to do now, not just fitness wise, but a lot of people have kind of lost the rag with him in recent weeks as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And I just think I think that Kabanga will, by the sounds of him and look of what he does, he'll work well with a number 10. But you need that link in there, whether it's Shankland or whether it's Boyce, or whether it's even someone like Jan Danda. Again, I know not the flavour of the month. He's not really been played in his preferred position. So it does seem like Kabanga is the type to play in front of a number 10, or as a partnership with a striker who drops in, i.e. Shankland or Boyce, who does that. And I just feel that Hearts could do with more. What's the term? More variation as central strikers. I just think that I look at what you need in the Scottish Premiership, and I always maintain I think you do need a target man type striker, someone who you can knock the ball into. We've seen it with the issues we've had playing against Kilmarnock, Hibs, where we crossed the ball so many times and nothing's really came off. It came off on Sunday brilliantly because Penrice, brilliant cross, Wilson, brilliant header, brilliant movement. But I do think you still need that variation where you are struggling, where teams are defending deep against you and you're having to put crosses in the box. They're going to be less likely to do that if you've got a big guy in there who is great in the air. And I look at, yes, they might not be aesthetically pleasing, but I look at Kyle Vassell, I look at Sam Dalby at Dundee United, the effectiveness they have and the effectiveness they can have in Scottish football, and go back to two of my favourite Heart strikers, Lee Miller and Kevin Kyle. Brilliant in the air, such a threat when the balls are coming in from wide issues. That's where I would like to see, if Hearts go back into the market for another striker, I'm not sure they will. I don't have any information whether they will or they won't. That's the type of striker I think Hearts need, whether it's now or whether it's longer term.
Just get Wrexham to recall Sam Dalby.
Yeah.
Take him for the season. Hope that he hasn't appeared for Wrexham this season. And take him. That was another thing I was going to just add to what you said there about crosses. I don't disagree about needing more variation and needing a target man and that kind of thing, or it'd be nice to have. But I watched the obligatory mashup of Kabangu's goals with music on YouTube, and a lot of the goals, again, caveat with the level and all that kind of stuff, a lot of the goals were from crosses, and that's something that I don't know, going by what Hearts players and the head coach is saying after the games, sounds like something they want to continue doing. They want to keep getting the ball into the box. So it doesn't sound like they're saying we're getting X amount of crosses and not finishing them. They're not saying, oh, we need to change it up because we're not getting any joy from this. So again, if he can recreate some of that, then that would again make sense and fit in with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's also one where Shanklin noted this is like the quality of crossing, and also you go back to the derby and the lack of switch of play. So the play wasn't switched quickly enough to, for example, to Penrice, and then it means if it's not switched quickly enough, then it gives the opposition more time to get bodies in the box. So it's not. I don't think it's just a case of that it's like a striker issue. I think it's a kind of a fundamental issue. If Hearts are playing too slow, that can cause an impact as well. Now, talking about crossing, and I may as well bring in. We'll move on to talk of a winger. Katie asked, genuine interest in Danny Armstrong. So Hearts were linked with Danny Armstrong over the weekend. I know it's a player who, certainly going back to last season, myself and James Kearney talked about as someone who you would look at and think that's a good addition. Back then, I think Joe Savage came out and said he would have cost about 7 figures, which probably makes sense with how his importance to Kilmarnock and also buying him from the same league. Derek McInnes came out and said that there's not been, as far as he's aware, there's not been any contact. From what I understand, I would be surprised if Danny Armstrong ended up at Hearts, whether it was in January or in the summer. Not ruling it out, but I would class it as unlikely. However, what I would say is I do think Hearts are in the market for a wide man, and I think it's another one that's another position where I think a lot of fans would like the team to add, especially again if they have pace. And you mentioned as well, interestingly, that the lack of left footers. So I wonder if that's something that the club will look at. Whether it's probably not as much of a priority as the forward or centre backs this month, but it's certainly an area where I think Hearts can improve on, because we've talked about it, the inconsistency from the players who have been playing there.
Aye. So I think that was something that, because it went on so long, I didn't realise you were throwing a question to me at first there. Sorry, that's why there was a gap. No, that was totally my fault. Something that came up, the video we did last night, but it already got so late that I kind of had to knock it on the head. But, and I'm not trying to make, I'm sure Scott would have had some sort of answer, but one of the things he said about the substitutions, Vargas and Forrest coming on, I mean, my question would be that who else comes on? We have this big squad, but it's like I said, it's filled with players that are either being unfavoured by manager after manager, or not quite made it, or quite a lot in the wide positions.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly, who would you have brought on to? I don't know. You know what I mean? The point I'm trying to make is not got like a wealth of options there. So yes, wide players seems to be essential as well. I think we got a bit of an uptick out of Alan Forrest when Critchley first came in. There was a couple of goals, even when he maybe wasn't being that productive in front of goal. He was still working hard and fitting into the system, and at least pressing well when Hearts were pressing well for that short spell. Vargas really hasn't done much under Critchley. I think there was a goal at St Johnstone. That was like a few games in. I don't think there's been much since, really, has
St
there?
Mirren, yes, St Mirren as well. I think the 4-0 win, he scored. But
okay,
yeah,
right.
That's
right
his
at the
2
start
goals.
again, right? So similar to Forrest then. Similar to Forrest. He just didn't make noises about wanting to play at a higher level and things like that. So yeah, I think wide players, I think going by the substitutions that have been made in the last game and what we've seen in recent weeks, wide players, quality out wide. And I think as well, I think we've said for a while that the left side of the team is quite strong, and the right side of the team still kind of has a bit of work, or there's it's a bit more sort of like square pegs and round holes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I've not heard any links regarding any wide men. That was Armstrong was only one, but it's definitely an area that I think is one that requires more productivity from. If it's not going to be the players that are in the squad, then that means bringing others in. We've got an article I think going up tomorrow about the drop off from the supporting cast from last season behind Shankland as well. So it's definitely an area that will need to be addressed this month or summer.
Just pick up one of the things a mutual friend says to us every now and again: bottom 6 players, bottom 6 results. It's the players at Hearts, I mean, maybe Danda aside, the players at Hearts have signed from so-called bottom 6 clubs have maybe been some of the better performers this season. It's the players that are still on the books from previous seasons that have let their performance dip.
Yeah, absolutely. Graham from the Gorgie Boys podcast, he says, morning guys, think we obviously need a striker. He said 2 wide players and 2 centre-backs, and I think a playmaker in midfield, as too many midfielders are too similar. That is, again, I think it's a fair point around the midfield. I just wonder, there is obviously a lot of competition there. Definitely think there is the need to reshape the variation in there. Again, Callum Neuenhoff, whenever he comes back, I think it's going to be obviously the new year now. But again, a lot of expectation on him and how he can get up to speed after missing 9-10 months is going to be. But I suppose the big one where it says Graham mentions 2 centre-backs. 2 centre-backs has been the target for Hearts. I think it's changed due to the injuries to Kingsley and Kent. There was interest. There was certainly club were looking at centre-backs prior to Kingsley's injury. So it's one that they were looking at, have been looking at for a while. I think both could be done relatively early in the window. I think there's been movement around 1 or 2, which should hopefully be addressed early. But as with transfers, it's never just a straightforward. It's never just straightforward. It's there's a lot of moving parts to it. What would you like to, in terms of centre backs? What would you like to see from in terms of the centre backs coming in? Potential centre backs coming in.
Oh, it's a good question. I don't know. The obvious, I guess. Keep the ball out the net. As much as we when Halkett first came back, he was carrying a knock, and he was quite good against Aberdeen. All things considered, that makeshift defence did quite well. And then in the next game, he was very dominant against Dundee. And then you've seen since then what can happen when a player misses so much football. So, someone with, and we've lost Frankie Kent as well. So I think there has to be a dominant centre half in there, especially if who knows what's happening with Rels. I think it would be, somebody asked in the comments earlier about, I know there has been rumours about him, maybe they were Jason Morrison. I know there has been rumours about a deal in future for Rels. I don't know with the current situation how smart that would be to let him go. But so considering he's been the one constant because he's been the fit centre back. So assuming you're bringing in somebody to play alongside Rels, then you would hopefully be looking for somebody in the ilk of Halkett or Kent, but somebody that's not injured, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could look at in terms of two centre backs, two different qualities or attributes. You do definitely need the balance. I don't think.
Maybe someone for competition for Rels as well. I mean, that would be, if you're talking about two, then another one would be competition for Rels, and you'd want at least one of them to be good on the ball. You'd like a threat from set pieces at the other end. But yeah, I think Rels has, because we're running him into the ground a wee bit as well. All the games, all the minutes he's having to play.
Yeah, in terms of outfield players, he's played the most in the Hearts squad. Only Craig Gordon has played has played more minutes than him, and I don't think there's certainly been interest in Raúl. I think he is. I've maintained. I think he's the type of player who, while there's aspects of his game that aren't aren't great in Scottish football, still can struggle from time to time with the physical aspect of it. But I do think teams will look at him and look at other qualities and attributes, his reading the game, his ability to go one-on-one with attackers, to come out wide and deal with threat. I think a lot of teams will look at the high upside, the ceiling that Kai Rowles has, and I think it's good. But I don't think. For me, I don't think I don't think he will be allowed to leave or sold unless two are brought in, because that just leaves Hearts short again. So exactly, I think two need to come in before he goes out, and then you have to kind of look at what Hearts want. I'm not unsure particularly how much Hearts are looking to get from him. There's been a few more. Just people praising Oyegoke. Michael asks, can we get Nielsen back from loan? I believe I'm still unsure whether there is a recall option. I would imagine there would be, but I don't think that is. I don't think that's something Hearts are considering. I think what Hearts are looking at is signings to strengthen their centre back options. And I suppose we'll move on to what we can expect to see from players going out. So there's been a few questions. Stephen asks, what are the most likely outgoing? Any chance of Mackay, Rowles, Halkett, Forrest able to leave? And Scott Bennett asks, has Barry Mackay down tools or just out of favour? I think Barry Mackay is just out of favour. At the moment, he's not been in a squad since Cercle Bruges. When he came on towards the end with Barry Mackay, I'm thinking after Liam Boyce and George Grant's performance, do we start him? Just bring him out from the cold and just start him against Motherwell? However, it's less clued up on the potential exits in terms of interest. I think it's pretty obvious who the players are that could be going out. As always, if there's interest in the player and that interest meets Hearts' valuation, then that player will go. So basically, everyone's available. Everyone in the squad's available. It's just who's more available than others. And I don't think it's too hard to work out the players who are, just because you just automatically look at the minutes and take it from there. But it also requires interest from elsewhere.
Yes, and when you are of the level of a club like Hearts, you pay a wee bit more than so some of these players, with the best will in the world, some of the players that people are talking about here aren't going to go up a level when they leave Hearts.
No.
So that would suggest they would potentially have to take a wage cut. So these people like Forrest, for instance, somebody's mentioned there, he's contracted until 2026.
Halkett's 2026 as well.
Exactly. So it's a matter of, it's a wee bit easier if their contract's done at the end of the season. You can maybe do a loan until the end of the season, that kind of thing, or you can come to some sort of agreement. It's easier to do. But someone's not going to give up a year and a half unless somebody comes in and gets close to or meets that wage. So that's going to be the place that Hearts are in with some of these players, because everything else being equal, usually you perform well, you attract interest, and you get better offers. I mean, some of the players that we're talking about here clearly aren't in that situation, and Hearts are looking to get rid of them as well. So these clubs won't be in. It's not as if Hearts have got like a strong negotiating hand and these kind of things. So, it's what we kind of expect in a nutshell from this. I'm whistling a wee bit. I've got a wee issue with a tooth here. Sorry. What we're kind of expecting is a busy start to the window, and then after that, it's going to depend on how many Hearts can get out, and don't know. We don't know. We don't know exactly who or how many that Hearts will be able to move on.
Yeah, that's certainly. I think that's when you look at the ins and the outs. I do think the outs are probably more tricky than more or less straightforward than bringing players in. And bringing players in, as I mentioned earlier on, is far from straightforward. But you look at the fact that Barry Mackay's barely played, and he's out of contract at the end of the season. Andrew Salazar's barely played. He's played once, and he's been on the bench recently. But again, that's because due to injuries. Liam Boyce and George Grant are two others that you kind of thought they would be options to be moved on. Then they started against Ross County, so it's that kind of froze up in there. But again, both players, I would imagine that if there was significant interest or sufficient interest, it would be they would move on. And I know that there's certainly been loan interest in the likes of Macaulay Tate and Callum Sandilands as well. I would suggest that probably both of those players could probably do with going out somewhere and just playing a run of minutes. Because, for example, Macaulay Tate, I don't think it's helped that he started against Petro Cup, then he was on the bench, then he missed out on a squad, and then he was back on the bench against Ross County, and then he saw George Grant, who potentially doesn't have a long-term future at Hearts, is into the team ahead of him. So it's probably best for these two young players at that time in their career just go out and get minutes and get experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. Although the George Grant thing worked.
Absolutely.
I don't disagree with your point, but it worked on the day, having a slightly more forward-thinking option of the two midfielders in there. But Sandilands is one that's been talked about for a wee while now, that they're looking for a loan in January. I'm sure Forrester was planned for January as well until
Forrester probably would have. Yeah.
He was put into the first team, and it's got to the stage now where it's not doing Macaulay Tate any good to just be on the fringes most of the time. And yeah, I suppose it doesn't really help just to be in for a game and out again. It would have to be a run or some sort of consistent substitute appearances either side of starts and things like that. So yes, I agree. It'd be better for him to go out and get a loan at somewhere. Wraith. We need to send everybody on loan to Wraith at some point.
And again, that's another one where you look at Hearts have a recall option on Finlay Pollock and what the future holds for him. Again, that's one of those where once we're able to, and you're in a better place where there's not so much focus on what's just happened on the pitch, as has been the case the last couple of games. You can get into Critchley's thoughts on what he sees as the future and stuff. I'll just finish up with a few quickfire comments that have been mentioned. But one thing I'll say, there's been a lot of chat in the comments about Barry Mackay. I think that's whether he stays and is involved again in the second half of the season or he moves on. That's a podcast in itself because he's been one of my, certainly in the last few years, been one of my favourite Hearts players to watch. And there's sometimes I just go back and watch clips of him just drifting in and playing, skinning players and playing passes through and and then the drop off and the effectiveness. I still maintain. I completely understand why some fans have moved on from him, but I'm still part of me thinking, just give him a chance, give him a run of games, and he might not do anything for 89 minutes, but he might just play a lovely through ball, get us off our seat. But that'll be for another time. So just to finish up, Stephen asked, some rumours about a Brazilian forward playing in Turkey seems too good to be true. Any truth in it, do you think? That's not one I don't think either of us have heard. Not sure. I've certainly not. It's not something that's came up for me. That's been asked. When is Taylor expected to return? Hearts and injuries. I don't know. He's been making progress the last couple of months, and he's been back on the pitch. I don't think we'll see him maybe until, again, I'm just speculating, nothing definitive here.
The playoffs.
I'd be surprised to see him before March, but who knows? The hope is hopefully see Neuenhoff before him. That's for sure. James asked, late to the party, lads, did I read Elton Kabangu is in Edinburgh already and done paperwork? I believe he was in Edinburgh yesterday finalising the deal, so it's hoped, as long as nothing goes awry, I'm hopeful that it'll be announced at some point before the Motherwell game, whether it's the first or whether it's the second. But again, reiterate, transfers are never as straightforward.
It's going to be an annoying time for us. And just Super J is saying, can't believe people are pining for Mackay to start. Let it go. That is just Joe. Just ignore it, Super J. Just ignore it. It's only Joe. Yeah.
I mean, he's honestly,
and he heavily caveated
it. Yeah, I know. It's but that's the situation. That's the situation we're in at the moment. But that's why we're talking about the January transfer window.
It was Oda last week.
Yeah. I apologise to the comments that we didn't get to. So there was talk. Chris asked about a tactical switch. There was another one about. There was a couple
the tactics
more
worked on Sunday. Just as briefly, tactics worked on Sunday. They just didn't at the end of the game, and I don't think there was really much tactical about the end of the game. I think it was just the conditions were atrocious, and Hearts' mentality to get over the line wasn't there, and the quality as well, and just not setting up at that throw. And these are the things that went wrong. I think he did change the system, because it was against the back three again. He dropped Boyson in a 4-2-3-1, and I mean it worked. It worked. County weren't in that game until injury time. It's still unforgivable what unfolded after that, but I think Hearts largely got it right against County.
But yeah,
is that controversial to say?
No, absolutely. 95 minutes were absolutely fine. But yeah, like kind of wider, there has been wider issues over the last few games, but we won't get into that today. I'm sure that'll be another show. And then there was also talk, someone folk were mentioning Craig Gordon and Zander Clark. We talked about that at length in the last night's show, and I'm sure that'll come up again potentially on Thursday when we play Motherwell, and to see who is in goals. Someone asked, do we think Craig Gordon or Zander Clark? But I've absolutely no idea. That's really interesting to see how that goes. And then
now would be the time to do it if he's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see on Thursday, trying to get my dates right. But until then, I would just like to say thank you very much, everyone, for listening, for commenting, for engaging. Thank you for those who read our stuff on Heart Standard. Thank you for everyone who has subscribed and has listened this year. It's been great to do. They're always fun to do, and it's always great to get engagement, even if you disagree with us. And absolutely, some of our opinions are rubbish, so they are worth disagreeing with. But until Thursday, I hope everyone has a wonderful new year. It's miserable outside, so stay safe, whatever you do, and hopefully Hearts get 3 points on Thursday, and we're talking about positive things, and maybe a new player or two as well. So until then, goodbye and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.